happy to have here live in studio Shane Sato, who did this gorgeous book. Let's bring that close. And Deidre Teagarden's here. Hi, Deidre.
How are you?
This is a book called The Go for Broke Spirit, and I'm getting a little light on the top. That's better, yeah. This is a gorgeous coffee table book that Shane is going to be talking about tomorrow, and it's going to be a special talk happening at the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center. So tell us a little bit about it, Deidre. How did you find this book and invite Shane to come talk?
Well, Shane has been working on these portraits for the past 18, 20 years. And when I started at the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center, I had heard about this book. I'd seen some of the photographs, and turns out that our great friend who helps us down at First Hawaiian Bank is also cousins with Shane. It's funny how Maui works.
Yes.
And anyway, we all were able to get in touch with one another. But Shane has been taking photographs of many of our Maui veterans. So they have been talking to us about him as well, and you'll see their portraits in the book. But when he said he was willing to come out and share the book and do a talk story, we were just thrilled. And you know how we love our talk story series at the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center.
Absolutely, and you do wonderful ones. And the fact is, it's amazing that you can do these great talks for free.
We have great supporters, everyone from CPB Foundation, Munekio Haraga, Maui Sons and Daughters of the Nisei Veterans, Abby Carpet of Maui, Warren Orikasa and his family. So they allow us through their generous donations to provide these speaker series and leadership series at often no cost and to the public. So Shane will be one of those on Saturday.
So Shane, you grew up in Wailuku, and your relatives were here, and you'd go play when you'd come, and actually knew the old days of Wailuku and would run around Vineyard Street, right?
Yes, well...
I noticed you got your Wailuku T-shirt on in honor of it, right?
Yes. I'm really excited to come back to Maui. Now, I was born and raised pretty much in Los Angeles, so I'm a Katonk. But my dad's side of the family was all raised over here. They all lived right down the street from the station. And I'm excited to come back and visit again.
So tell me the story of this book. This book took you a long time. You went around and found these veterans, the Nisei veterans of World War II, right? So what made you want to do a project like this?
I like to photograph things that I am interested in, and the stories of the Nisei veterans were always very important to me. And throughout my life, my parents, my mom, and my dad never really talked about these stories. And so that history was lost to me. And so later on, when I started working with these veterans, I realized how important these stories were and to continue to tell. So I wanted to keep taking portraits and learning more about them. And even though my family said it wasn't important and what they did wasn't important, and to just go out and become the best you can be and not worry about what they did, I really felt that through these veterans, I learned more about myself, learning and to be proud about what they did and how they went through the war.
Were they involved? Did they actually experience the war, and did they know people that were interned?
My mom's side was interned, and so they had their family farm taken away.
Oh, my.
And so they were all sent to post in Arizona.
Wow.
And so that story was rarely told to me. My mom would just say, we went to camp. And I said, wow, camp?
Wow.
That's great. How long did you get to go for? And she said, 4 years.
Oh, my gosh.
And I was like, wow, that's great. When can I go to camp? I had no idea what it was.
Oh, my gosh. And this is something that you really did recognize, that a lot of the Nisei vets did not tell their family. I know you've said that story before, Deidre, that their family a lot of times did not realize what their parents had gone through.
No, I mean, we hear it all the time that the families really didn't know what the fathers, their husbands had gone through. And we often at the center see that a lot of times the veteran maybe told the grandchildren, so it skipped a generation.
Yeah.
But that's why it's so important that the archives that we have at the center. It allows that closure and the family to learn about what their father, grandfather, husband.
And you see
have
it
done.
unfold before your eyes because you have the museum where people
We
have
do.
the ability to understand and share the story.
Yes.
And can I see some of the pictures now? Shane's a fabulous photographer, and I particularly love the way that you understand and capture the spirit of these amazing men, and the light and oh my gosh! Now explain the story. Now you went around and found these Nisei vets. Now this is a man who had possibly family that was interned and decided to go ahead and serve and in America in the World War II era.
Mm-hmm.
And look at this gorgeous. I want to try to get the light off this picture.
And this is Hiroshi Arazumi.
Oh, you know Hiroshi Arazumi.
Well, Arazumi brothers.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
And so he's actually going to be hopefully at the event.
Oh, really?
And this is actually one of my favorite photos. With the as you were talking about the darkness and the contrast, I really wanted to bring
And
out the
pride.
strength.
The
Yes.
pride and the look in his eyes, yeah? I mean, that's a beautiful photograph. Now, did some of them still have, when you went around to these veterans, did some of them still have their uniforms?
Very few did, but the ones who did have their uniforms, a lot of them didn't fit anymore. But some did actually fit, and they brought them and they wore them, such as this man right here. That's actually his uniform.
Wow. Look at that face. Do you know where some of these men were serving? Do you know where he went actually to war? I mean, I know there was a group in Italy.
Yes, most of them were in Italy, but some were part of the MIS or some were in the Pacific. But the majority were from...
Oh, look at that photo. My gosh. And he's so small in that uniform. And look at the shaka. Oh, my gosh. How
So-
sweet. How old is he?
Well, Willie, we just lost
We just
Willie.
lost Willie.
Oh.
But he was from Maui, Willie Gu. And his...
Oh, my gosh.
What an amazing story. We had the honor of seeing him at the center a number of times over the past several years, and we're so sorry he's no longer with us. But
But he was captured in spirit there.
Yes.
And you have the story, obviously, on the other side of the page, and because you were able to do a little background on each of these. Wonderful.
Yes, and like I said, we were really trying to talk story, get a personal story out of them, not necessarily just a historical one. So when possible, there's a personal story about the veterans, which you really can't find anywhere else. And that's the way I really want to share these stories, so people know the human side to them, and then they can learn the historical parts on the internet or wherever else they would like to look.
Now, isn't it interesting? I'm kind of curious, Shane. You're obviously an amazing photographer, but I'm kind of curious about what your parents think now that they haven't really told you the background. But like you said, your mother just said she went to camp, and yet here she was interned in Arizona, and wasn't really in a summer camp. She was in an internment camp. Now she's seeing you do this work. Did she get a chance to see these photos or know about what you were doing?
Unfortunately, my father passed away when I was at a very young age. I think I was 16. My mother, I just lost her about 3 years ago.
Oh.
And that's when I was just in the middle of working on the book. And she saw the portraits, and she definitely did like them. But unfortunately, she never got to see the finished product and what exactly I was doing.
Deidre, how many, just for the people watching and on Facebook Live, how many of these heroic soldiers have you heard stories about that actually, there were untold stories for years?
They were.
And these were the Nisei, the people whose, a lot of times families were interned in camps, and they lost sometimes everything.
yes,
They lost some of them had businesses, some were lawyers, some were doctors. They lost their homes, they lost everything, and yet the men decided to prove their worth and their loyalty by going to war.
yes. And Maui has a very large internment story as well. We had 2 detention sites on Maui, but we have had, many families who were in the detention sites here and then sent on to the mainland, and, yet they come back and, want to do better for that next generation. I think if you look at the values of the men who served, gaman, which is endurance, and
look at that
giri,
face.
which is obligation, haji, which is shame. They wanted to make sure that they had this obligation to their family and to their nation. They didn't want to shame their families by not giving it their all, so they all, go for broke. That's what the go for broke spirit is.
Well, some of the men were considered some of the best fighters in the war.
They were the 442 and the 100th, or the 100th and the 442 are the most decorated. Were the most decorated for any unit in that, for their size and length of service in the U.S. Army. And what they did was just absolutely amazing. And we've had the opportunity at the center, at the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center, to actually have these gentlemen come down and share their stories. I remember when Mr. Arizumi came in and was telling me about rescuing the Lost Battalion, so matter-of-factly, and was talking about how tired they had been coming off another battle, and they didn't have very much time to rest, and they were told to go back out and rescue this Texas battalion. And so he said, shikata ga nai, we were tired, but what else can you do? They told us to do this, so that's what we did.
And a lot of the men were lost in the war.
Yes, and we have 101 who were killed in action from Maui alone. So when you come to our center and you see that plaque outside, that's the list of the 101 men who were lost. And this Sunday, of course, Saturday, we have Shane coming in to do his beautiful talk story and the book signing. And then Sunday, we have a joint memorial service that pays respect to the first soldier who was killed in the war. But that's on Sunday at 2:00 at the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center. So that is open to the public. You do not have to be Japanese American. You don't have to be a World War II buff. You don't have to have anybody who served, but to come and share in the legacy
And
of these men. And recognize these stories.
And try to right the wrong. And a lot of
Yeah.
people don't actually say it, but they were wrong. These people were totally...
They were. They
were
were
wrong,
prejudice and racism.
It was
and
totally prejudiced and racism, and some
Oh.
of these people were so dedicated in doing good things in the community, but only because of their race, they lost everything.
Yes.
Put it in camps, and these brave men's story now are being told of how they gave everything. I mean, just to be able to prove their loyalty to the country.
That's right. I feel like there's really been a resurgence too. There's such an overwhelming cry for these stories and to make sure that we don't make these same mistakes again. So
Yes.
that's why it's so important to have talented individuals like Shane Sato, who has taken many years of his life and a lot of his own money too, to create this book, capturing these stories. And I like how he said it's history, but it's in a very conversational manner. So when you read these stories, they're very personal stories. And yes, you can go to the internet to find out more about the history of World War II, but you're not going to be able to find these personal stories and insights on the internet.
That picture tells such a story. Talking about a picture telling a story, that face, it has sadness, it has reflection. Who was that? Was it Edward Ikuma?
Yes.
What was his story, Shane?
Well, I can't remember his exact story right now, but he still lives in Oahu, and he was one of the ones that went to fight in Italy. And when there's a monument in Italy that they do a celebration for every year.
Every year.
And so
Really? I didn't know about that. Yeah.
And they came out to be honored, and a lot of the families and relatives came out to honor these Nisei soldiers every year during the celebration, which is amazing. Out in Italy, they have something like this, but
Wow.
out here, I don't think we have anything that honors just them, right? So
Not like they, and France also has a similar celebration to thank these men. So I think next year there's a big tour going back to those two areas. But yes, it's very heartwarming, and to know that after all these years, their story is alive and well in not only the hearts of Americans, but in the hearts of many in Europe as well.
Well, Shane, you've been able to capture their spirit so beautifully and memorialize their story. And your photographs are just amazing and in capturing that. GoForBrokeSpirit.com is the site you have. This book will be available at the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center. A few people can still get some seats for free at 1:30 at the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center.
So please come down. We do have copies of the book. You can purchase your book ahead of time, or you can purchase it on Saturday and get it signed while Shane is still in town. So they make gorgeous holiday gifts, and it's a beautiful piece of history. It's
That is the happiest face that is in the book. Who is this man? Masato Yamashita.
his name is Mach, and he actually he was a baseball fan before the war, and they played a lot of baseball in internment camps to kind of pass the time. And so when he came back, they formed a lot of Nisei baseball leagues, basketball leagues, things like that, because they were not allowed in other regular leagues, so they
Wow.
formed their own. And so that is why on the mainland, at least, as well as probably here in Hawaii, these Japanese Nisei leagues were a part of every kid's life. I played basketball, I played baseball, I went fishing, everybody did that.
Really?
And those are the kind of things that the younger generation, they know that they play these sports, but they don't know exactly why. And this kind of tells the history of why this
He's
happened.
got that baseball in his hand.
Yes.
Yeah, look at those hands. Oh my gosh. Beautiful work, Shane. I just have to say, you've done a beautiful job with these photographs. Look at that man. Oh my gosh, with his gun, and he's so small. And oh my gosh, Frank. Each of these is a story. Each photograph has a story.
Yes, each of it's a story, and what I really want to do is have this coffee table book on people's desks, coffee tables, or wherever else, and have people and the families talk about it, share the stories with the kids, because like I was saying before, my history was lost, and I don't want that happening to the younger generations. Any kind of, and this could be stories from, doesn't have to be Japanese American, anybody could share their stories. And everyone's story is important, and that's really, really what I'm trying to do, is have people open up and talk about things where my family never did. And I understand why they didn't, but I wish they did, and I wish I asked more questions when I was younger.
But now you've made up for it.
I hope so. I hope
but
they
you have,
like it.
because there was that puka, that hole. You went and filled it with all this amazing work and these great photos and the stories, and you helped all these other men who were serving and honoring them with this legacy of these gorgeous photos. So thank you, Shane. GoForBrokeSpirit.com. The book's available. It's a great gift. You can come to the Nisei Veterans Memorial Center tomorrow at 1:30.
Yes, we have a seat for you. So
Yep.
come on down. It's free.
And please, take your time, learn the story, share the stories,
Yes.
and keep that Go for Broke spirit alive. And it's the Go for Broke spirit, and portraits of courage indeed. Thank you so much, Shane. You did a great job with this. It's a beautiful, beautiful work of art.
Thank you.
Thank you. Aloha.
Aloha.